Episode 6 of Digital Body Language. This is one of my favorite 10 polls and a topic I could go off on for forever. So get ready. Here we go. I've always been a babysitter. I love babysitting. I think it's a fantastic thing. I love kids, especially when I first moved to LA. I was like, let me be in people's homes, get out of an apartment, be with families. I loved it. Great way to make money, great way to network. Side tangent on babysitting. I could talk about that for forever. I have witnessed so many children with devices, with phones, with iPads. You know, I've had a firsthand look at what these parents are dealing with technology. My nanny family, whom I adore Delano. I want to interview the two kids one day. I need to ask the parents about that. But I just think we'd all giggle so hard and talk about their experiences with the devices. But basically, I'm out in the neighborhood with my child.
Bitch, I'm a mother. No drama.
We're on a bike. I brought my rollerblades because I'm a good babysitter. And I'm down to clown. He looks at me and he says, hey, will you text my mom to ask if their neighbor friend is home? And I looked at him and I was like, let's just go walk to the house and knock on the door to see if your friend's home. And he was like, what? I go, yeah, it's called knocking on the door and asking if so-and-so can play. And he was like, no, text my mom and the mom will text their mom. And I said,
No.
I dare you to walk up to that door. We're going to go over there and you're going to knock on the door and ask if he's home. And he did that. And when I tell you, he looked at me like I had magic in my hands. He was so speechless. He was like, what? That worked? And I was just like, oh my God. I was losing my mind at how things have shifted, right? The automatic way he went to be like, text my mom to make this happen. No. This brings me to the tent pole of lost friction. This is the cultural shift from effortful, intentional experiences to frictionless convenience, i.e. texting the mom to ask the buddy to come outside instead of using our feet and walking up to the door and saying, hi, is so-and-so home to play? When effort disappears, meaning changes. When effort disappears, meaning changes. We are living in an age of convenience. And convenience erased all the small resistances that once made experiences feel earned, memorable, and intentional. Going over to your friend's house used to be something that you had to really want because you'd leave the house, knock on the door, and have the thought, intention, and effort, and the friction, the difficulty of asking if you can leave the house, walking a distance. Things took effort, and effort is what made them matter. That still is how it is. We are living in such an age of convenience where things just don't feel worthwhile because we didn't have to work hard for them. Friction used to slow us down. It forced moments of decision and of presence. You had to walk somewhere, knock on the door, wait for a response, talk to someone face to face. And those little barriers weren't just inconveniences, they were filters for intention. You get that? Now everything is instant, automated, optimized for ease. And when something requires almost no effort, it genuinely carries less meaning. This is where I have felt a stark generational divide. My age is a weird one because I am Gen Z, but I was raised still pre children having iPhones and everything being online for school. I had to play in the backyard. I had to come up with ideas, had to walk to neighbor's house, had to look in the phone book to call my friend's parents to ask if they could come over the next day on a bus pass. So there's this generation of Gen Z and then Gen Alpha that have just grown up in a world where friction barely exists. Everything's easy, it's not hard to get, and it frankly leads to a sense of entitlement, but also makes me so concerned for them. Life is hard. Life is filled with hard things, technology or not, and you need to learn how to be able to fight through that. Content is appearing automatically. Food arrives automatically. Music plays automatically. People are around you instantly. You can just do whatever you want, kind of whenever you want. Something else I've observed with babysitting is that all these kids have their own For You pages. It literally says in the title, For You page. It's curated to exactly what you want. You don't have to learn tolerance. You don't have to learn sharing. This friction of having to do something that maybe you don't want to do or watch something you don't want to watch or aren't necessarily interested in has evaporated. My siblings and I shared a TV and a computer. So my brother now knows High School Musical, Hannah Montana, all of the Nickelodeon and Disney references that maybe he otherwise wouldn't have known, in the same way that, like, I know stuff about Bionicles and Magic the Gathering and, like, Nice Guys Finish Last on YouTube. And thank God for that. I'm more well-rounded because of that. I have more tolerance, the same way all of his girlfriends have always thanked us and been like, shout out you, he knows about Alex Russo and Wizards of Waverly Place. You know, like, you had to learn to negotiate with your siblings, and sometimes you watched something you didn't like, but you also learned something. Like, you don't always know what you like until it's on or you see it. And when we have just this For You page that doesn't make there be any effort to find something that you want, or to find something that maybe you didn't know if you wanted.
Or lease in the morning.
There was friction, and friction created a shared culture. This also makes me think about with dating, which I'm going to do a whole episode on online dating and dating apps because it's been weaved in throughout all of these episodes, and I get overwhelmed at even beginning to talk about it. But oh my God, the lack of friction with dating. People are just laying in bed, swipe, swipe, swipe. You're swiping at 8 a.m. before your corporate job while taking a shit. Are you really thinking about dating? No. But it's so easy. They gamified the whole thing versus when dating used to have to be, you had to go out. You had to go to a restaurant, to a bar, to a dance, to a class, to a club. That took effort. So it filtered out people that maybe didn't have the right intentions versus anybody can present any way online right now and make it seem like there's intention and effort there. Or the person on the receiving end thinks that there's effort and intention there when there's not. And that just causes miscommunication and crossed wires. And a lot of hurt. Ghosting. Oh my God, you guys. Ghosting, what the fuck? Like, I know that back in the day, sometimes people just wouldn't call, right? And that was a form of ghosting, but ghosting has just been so normalized. You spend a long time having dialogue and communication with somebody, and then they're just like, because it didn't take them any effort. Versus in person, that's a lot fucking scarier. Back in the day, if you were meeting up with a friend at a bar, you had to communicate with them, over the phone or in person, and you had to trust their word. If they said at 7 p.m., show up blank. So you get there. You would just park, walk into the bar, maybe meet somebody on your way in because you were stumbling in, go to the bar, order a drink, and meet the bartender, chat with somebody beside you. Instead of now, you say, on way, be there in 30, finding parking, what table are you at? Walking into the right, and not everybody does this. I'm exaggerating, but you know what I mean? Like, this happens all of the time. So you missed so many moments of connection and of opportunity because you just, like, streamlined it. Flirting and adventure used to have friction. You had to walk across the room, make eye contact, and start a conversation. Now, romantic possibility happens with a swipe, and a person becomes a profile that you can dismiss or accept in half a second. When something is easy to discard, it becomes more disposable. When experiences become easy to discard, they become more disposable. Friction was required to go and meet up with a friend at the bar. I have some friends that DoorDash their morning coffee. I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Walk to your local coffee shop. Interact with your barista. Maybe they're your husband. Maybe they're your wife. Maybe they're your friend. Maybe just that simple micro moment of making eye contact and having a conversation fills your cup. We are living in an age of remote work. So honestly, I will take any human interaction I can ever get because that does fill my cup. And our world used to be filled with so many more of those micro moments of why people still felt connected, even if they were like not as heavy or significant of relationships in their life. They mattered. This life was meant to be messy. This life was meant to be hard. This life was meant to be filled with varied experiences. And when I say that, I want it to be clear. Things that feel hard now were just part of the norm. By having everything be convenient and easy, we've hyper-exaggerated things that like aren't really hard. They're just part of being a human and putting in intentional effort. I mentioned this a few videos ago, but I'm going to recircle back on this. I listened to an interview on Doomscroll, Josh Cittrell. or Citrell. He's my favorite. He was one of the first podcasts I found a few years ago that made me feel seen and understood in my exploration of the internet. It's called Doom Scroll. I highly recommend. He's my king. He had an episode where Maddie Healy came on. Yeah, she's bringing up Maddie Healy again, but this episode was impactful for me where they talked about subculture and how Maddie coming up in London in the 90s and early 2000s like had to put in effort to find out the music he liked and the spaces he liked and the subcultures he liked. You had to look in the newspaper, find out what bar the emo kids were at, go to the bar, see what they were wearing, what they were smelling, what they were talking about, what they were listening to. Versus now, people can just scroll. So you can be part of a subculture with actually no real effort. Now, of course, that makes people feel touched and like they matter and part of communities. So that's a beautiful thing that the internet has done. Well, at the same time, it feels quite inauthentic and very performative.
Media consumption has been individualized. Subculture has been individualized and commodified. So when I was growing up, if you wanted to be a goth or a punk, you had to find out where they hung out. You had to physically go there. You had to build up the confidence to talk to them. You had to immerse yourself in a world of cultural and aesthetic references that you didn't know, that you either had to pretend to know and then go to a library. And all of these people's references you knew were authentic because social media didn't exist. You know that they had read this book or been to this show or seen this movie. They hadn't just revised a Wikipedia article on it. Do you know what I mean? So you would immerse yourself.
There was a barrier. There was like a hurdle, a small barrier to entry. Yeah. And you had to do certain stuff to join the subculture.
This is the thing. And a process of qualification. Yeah. And with that process of qualification, you acquired a kind of social identity. You immersed yourself in a community and you realized that if you bind together with a group, we do this quite a lot now, but in real life, your IRL friends versus your online friends, if you bind together in real life, you can create something bigger than yourself as an individual. Yeah.
We live in an ecosystem optimized for speed and convenience. And while it makes life easier, it also changes the emotional weight of everyday interactions. We communicate more, but each interaction carries less cost and often less meaning. The digitalism of the week. The OC. I was recently rewatching it because it's a fucking classic. And I'm always taken aback and noting how Seth would have to show up to Summer's house, knock on the door and say, "Hi, Mr. Roberts, is Summer home?"
You're at my house.
And you are dressed. I wonder who's more disappointed. Can I come in?
No.
Thanks.
He then developed a relationship with Summer's dad, as well as was clear about his intention and desire to be with Summer. Okay, if a boy had to actually come to my apartment or my home to ask if I was home, I'm sure I would have gone on a third of the dates or dynamics I've ever been involved with because it required real intention and real effort and real bravery. That doesn't exist now. And there's moments of that throughout all of the OC. I mean, it was filmed in 2003 and 2004. Seth had to make his intentions clear, but that was clear through the friction process he went through to get to Summer. Shout out Seth and Summer. Love them. My grandpa used to say to all of us, anything in life worthwhile comes with a little bit of aggravation. And that's so fucking true. Things that matter the most often have a couple of things you gotta work out and go through. Now, almost everything is frictionless, which means that the rare moments that still require effort, showing up, calling someone, choosing presents, stand out now more than ever. Call your friend, walk to get your coffee, make art with your hands, do hard things. Friction is a good thing. Once again, ask Aubrey, DM the Digital Body Language Instagram. You know the drill. We're going to get to answering and talking about your experiences, your questions, all things digital body language. This was our 5th tent pole. Next week is our 6th tent pole. Then we will have covered some of the lay of the land, some of these examples I've been really wanting to chat about. And then we'll get into some other more creative videos. Thank you for being here.